Good afternoon, everybody. Seem to not be able to bring my camera onto screen. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Apologies for that slight delay. This is a new piece of software and we're just working out the kinks. But thank you for joining us. My name's Alex. I'm from the AVR Lab and I've got my colleague Andrew here.
Hi.
Sitting ably next to me. He might be on my right on my screen. He might be on your left. Work it out. But thank you for joining us. Like I said, for some of you, this will be the first time that you have seen the technology that we're about to showcase. Some of you, this will be a refresher. I understand we have a very good representation from one particular company, and there are a few people that have seen the demo and a few people that haven't. So for the purpose of this demo, we're going to treat it as though it's the first time seeing it for all of you. So apologies if this is a little bit of a repetition, but I think it's in the best interest of everybody to see it from scratch. So without any further ado, I'll get into a bit of a presentation as to what we're doing here, what the AVR Lab is all about, and the brands that we also represent. Okay, so here on my screen, you can see that we've got the AVR Lab nestled right in the center of Librestream and RealWear. Now, the AVR Lab is the full solution provider. So that's just to say that we're the mesh that sticks everything together. Librestream is the software that we were representing at IMARC, and RealWear is the hardware or the wearable device that you would have seen at IMARC if you were there. So the AVR Lab on a page, who we are, we're AVR experts, which simply means anything in the augmented or assisted reality space or virtual reality, we are the experts. We can provide a solution for any use case that you like. What we do, we're distributors of AR and VR hardware and software for the Australia and New Zealand market. So a little note on that, we are completely device, software agnostic, which means you come to us as a customer, we put together what your use case is from what you tell us, and we actually recommend the best solution for your use case. Why we do what we do, our purpose is to upskill businesses through the use of AVR and immersive technology. Obviously, it's a new space, can be intimidating, it can be daunting, but with a company like the AVR Lab, you can leverage our many, many years of expertise and make it a nice, seamless transition to digitizing your workforce. Our customers, who we do it for, anyone that's looking to change the status quo of knowledge transfer for the frontline worker. So in the specific instance of what we're going to demonstrate today, we like to think that there's a remote worker out on the field completing a task that he would otherwise have not a chance of completing on his own, or potentially could have a chance, but it would take him many hours as opposed to 5 minutes, which is where you start to get your significant return on investment. So our point of difference, what we do differently to others, is we are the only independent immersive AVR technology business, and we deliver from start to finish and beyond. So that just means that from the moment that you actually purchase your headset to the moment that you've successfully deployed your hardware and software within your business, we're there to hold your hand the whole way. Now, as a business, we've had 200 plus deployments, over 140 customers. So why Librestream and why RealWear? Why did we partner with them at IMARC and why did we choose to partner with them as a company? So the customer and the partner support is second to none, which just means if something goes wrong with your device or your software, you are going to get a double layer of support. You're going to get one from RealWear or one from us, or if it's the software, you're going to get one layer from Librestream and one from us. And that's gold standard. And we get that sorted as quickly as we can. Now, the use case diversity is a very important part of why we partner with companies. If the software or hardware only really covers one use case, we're not too interested. It's a little bit niche. So what we like to do is partner with companies who can fill a wide case of use cases at a really high level. Ruggedness is also obviously a really big factor, especially in the mining, field service and manufacturing. You don't want a device that isn't resistant against dust, water, ingress of any sort. And you also want it to be safe, which is all the devices from RealWear are drop safe to 2 meters, which gives you a little bit of peace of mind. The product quality of both Librestream and RealWear is gold standard. It's absolutely fantastic. The future roadmap for both companies is really exciting. Now that's a whole separate webinar in and of itself, but suffice to say, there are some really exciting developments happening in the background that we can tell you about in the coming weeks. Now, the partner ecosystem is just the way that they look after the AVR Lab as a solution provider, which is awesome for our side. And most importantly for us is they're good people. So integrity is at the forefront of everything that we do at the AVR Lab, and the companies that we partner with are exactly the same in that sense. So a little bit about RealWear and who they are. They didn't come down in the last rain shower. They've been around for a very long time. They're the global leader of industrial strength assisted reality for the modern frontline worker. Their global footprint spans over 5,000 industrial customers, over 50,000 devices worldwide. There are 200 plus apps optimized for the RealWear devices, and there are 66 countries that are type certified for the devices, as well as 15 languages supported. Now, that's really important given these devices are completely voice operated. RealWear has an awesome language processing, so it can understand accents, languages of all different types. So the use cases that you can fulfill with the hardware alone, if you just get straight out of the box, you can have a document navigator, which simply means that you can have a look at a PDF. So you could have a worker out on site having a look at a PDF just in the bottom of their eye line and reference that, as opposed to having to hold a pad or an iPhone or something of the sort. And you can have visual assist, which just simply means that you can take photos and videos, and that will then enable you to make decisions later on. We are going to explore remote expert guidance a little bit further today. That'll be the demo that you see. Digital workflow is, again, a demo in and of itself, but that's digitizing current standard operating procedures and tasks that are done routinely. And IoT data visualization as well, which simply means you can have data overlaid over the reality, and it actually helps you to operate certain types of machinery. Now, a little bit about Librestream. They're transforming workforces with knowledge networks. Again, they didn't come down in the last rain shower. They've been around a very long time, 18 plus years to be exact, of experience in workforce transformation. They're the #1 remote expert AR solution in the market, and they've got 184 countries with 830% growth. They were selected by Fortune 2000 customers, and they're responsible for $3.2 trillion in revenue as well for their customers. So some of their use cases that you can see here, some companies have had a 70% productivity gain, which was measured in hours saved by their technicians out on site, a 3 times increase in number of daily inspections, and 50% cost savings in field acceptance tests, and 60% faster aircraft on ground, which equates to an $800,000 savings for Rolls-Royce. So we're exploring today how we combine the power of AR and AI. The core on-site platform capabilities are remote expert assistance, as I've said a couple of times now. That's what we're going to look at a little bit more in depth today. And the knowledge preservation, which will be the back end of that, and how that actually integrates into your business potentially. Now, some of these features, the advanced AI capabilities, are super impressive. We won't get the time to explore them today, but on a really top line view, the natural language processing translator is absolutely fantastic. It almost has 0 latency. I had a conversation with a Spanish speaking man while I was speaking Greek, which isn't my native tongue, and it still picked up everything that I said, even in my sloppy vernacular. We've got computer vision object recognition, optical character recognition, which just recognizes words on a page potentially, or a warning sign or something of the sort. And then the IoT data aggregation and visualization as well. And these are all the ways where we can scale the platform for your business also. So the Onsight Connect is it provides a fully collaborative environment to remotely inspect, troubleshoot, and resolve issues in any environment using any device. Now, this is your remote support module of Librestream. It captures the expert guidance and content that is automatically tagged to preserve knowledge. So a really handy way that works in practicality is if you're discussing, for instance, a carburetor, which you'll see that we do a demonstration on later, it will actually reference every time. The back end of Librestream will reference every time a carburetor is mentioned. So you don't have to scroll through or listen to 1 hour, 2 hours of video or audio to find the part of the conversation that you're looking for. You can actually just type in carburetor and it will bring up a list of all the times they were mentioned, which is super handy. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So it also delivers AI-enabled live translation to bridge language barriers and automatically detect assets for curated content, as I just touched on before. On-site workspace, which is the back end, as I mentioned. Andrew will take us through that. It's centralized to preserve valuable assets for future training and analysis, which is really just to say it's a way to utilize the data that you're collecting. Deliver curated content across your workforce and to integrate with additional data sources to centralize knowledge across teams as well. I think that's all I've got for now on the presentation front. And what I'll jump into at the moment, and guys, just a quick note, if you haven't seen the Q&A section on the side, we've got Liv from our support team who's made a reference there. Any questions that you had throughout the demo, feel free to drop them into that Q&A section. For now, I'll get into a hardware demo. Jeez. To show you the RealWear Navigator 520 as we discussed. So you can see here I've got the thermal camera fitted, which is great, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. But for now, I'll take you through the base functionality and features that you can expect from the RealWear Navigator 520, and I'll explain to you how it's been upgraded from the RealWear Navigator 500. So this is a ruggedized device. It comes with the headband off, but you can simply clip the headband on, or you can clip it onto a hard hat, or there are actually quite a few mounting options as well. So it's quite ruggedized. Like I said before, it's drop safe to 2 meters. So you don't have to worry if you get out onto site and someone drops it. It's more than safe. I often laugh and say, let's not test that theory out and start dropping it from 1.5 meters a few times. Let's try to keep it safe, but if it does drop, you are fairly safe. So we've got a hot swappable battery here, which simply means if you're connected to a call and your battery runs out, you pop the battery out, you've got 5 minutes of charge in the device, and then you just chuck your spare battery in and you're good for another 2-3 hours of video. You have your occluded display in here, which just means this little dark box houses your screen to make sure that it stays nice and crisp. So in the Navigator 500, your screen reads as a 7-inch phone from arm's length away, sorry. And the Navigator 520, what they've done is increase the size of that screen by 20%, and they've made it HD as well. So that's an OLED screen in the little display. So here we've got our thermal camera. The RealWear Navigator 500 and RealWear Navigator 520 are actually a modular design, which simply means if you flick that open, you can actually take that off and you can put the standard camera back on. Of course, once you've got the thermal camera, there's absolutely no need to swap it again, because you can toggle between thermal mode and normal HD video. So the camera within this is 48 megapixel stills, as well as HD video streaming. Something I did miss on the little occluded display here is you've got noise cancellation up to, I believe, I'm not going to remember how many decibels, but you've got quite good noise cancellation. We've actually done a test on this where we played a YouTube video full blast from in front of the headset while the headset wearer was talking, and all you could hear over the video was the headset wearer talking. You could not hear that song at all.
Alex, sorry about that. I was on mute. It's 102 decibels, mate.
102 decibels. We have noise cancellation. Thank you, Andrew. Those are the main features. It's also IP66 rated, which means you can spray it with a high pressure hose and it's fairly resistant to dust, sand, and other ingress. So you don't have to worry about it taking it out onto site. It's quite ruggedized and it's quite comfy in those scenarios. I think what I'll do now is I'll pass over to Andrew, who will take us through a bit of a software demo. And remember, guys, any questions along the way, feel free to drop them in.
So I'm widescreen now, I think.
Yep.
I hope both of my screens are able to be seen. Is that right?
Yeah, they are.
Awesome. Fantastic. Alex, thanks for that. What I'm sharing at the minute is I'd like to give you a demonstration. At the minute, you can see I've got two screens here. On the right-hand side, I'll use my Onsight Connect as the expert user. I'm going to make a call to Larry David, who's wearing the glasses that, or the Navigator 500 that Alex was showing you before. So if I click the button on my side of my Navigator 500, you can see that I've woken it up, and that's what my home screen looks like. What I'm going to do is start my Onsight application. So I'll use my voice and say Onsight. And you can see already that I'm getting a live video feed from my glasses and that the contacts has come across. And just in the background there, you can see that I've got a carburetor here and I need some help from Andrew. So as Larry David wearing the glasses, I have been given a task that I need to service this carburetor and I need to find the power valve. So I need to make a call. So let me call Andrew, and I will do that by saying, call Andrew Taylor. On the right-hand side, you'll see that call coming in. So when it connects, there's no video, so the glasses wearer just needs to quickly turn that on and they can say something like, start streaming. And you can see now on the right-hand side, I've got streaming coming in, and that's Andrew Taylor, who's the expert. I know it's a little bit difficult. I am trying to pretend I'm playing two different actors. We thought it was really important that you get to see the vision and operation from both the point of view of the person wearing the Navigator 500 on the left and the person being the remote expert who is going to assist Larry to identify the power valve cover. Now, you may have noticed that when we first joined our call, it was a little bit grainy. The power of the Onsight platform is that it allows us to set policies based on our bandwidth. Because I know I've got great bandwidth here, you'll see that over here, I'm going to select a little menu. As the expert, I'm able to go and change my bandwidth. I'll change it up to a custom configuration that I've written, which is a 720 by 30 frames a second. When I select that, you'll notice that my image becomes much, much clearer. You'll also see in the background that I've got my new thermal camera on my device here as well, but it's a great little piece of kit. I've upgraded my Navigator. So basically, Larry needs to contact Andrew and say, hi, Andrew, I need to look at this carburetor and I need to service the power valve cover. Can you help me identify it? And Andrew on the right-hand side will say, that's great, Larry, no problems. Let me take a picture of it because I'm not exactly sure what part of that object is the power valve cover. So on the right-hand side, Andrew can actually click just a little button here and send a remote message to the Navigator to take a photo. And when I do this, you'll see here that I've got the share and don't share. At the minute, I'm going to ask Larry just to be patient as I have a look at that picture. So if I don't share, what I'm going to do is come along here and have a look at the picture that I just took. So again, this is Andrew having a look at the picture that I just took from Larry. Now I can see that there. Larry's patiently waiting in the background, as you can see. What I'm able to do, as we've built up a model of this carburetor, I can send this picture up to the cloud for it to be scanned, and I will essentially click on this single button. And what that does, when I click on this single button here, it sends the picture up and compares it to the models that I have already set up in our domain. And you can see that it's come back and it's making some identifications. Specifically, you can see the power valve cover here at 99.76, which is huge. Now, this model of the carburetor doesn't get in there by accident. It is programmatically put in there with lots and lots of different photos. That definitely is a precursor. I click on the OK button up here, and you can see it's smart enough that it actually comes and actually highlights the items on the screen and says to me that's the automatic choke, pump cover, and those sorts of things. So what I want to do is I've identified the power valve cover, but better yet, if I give you these two screens, and I know it's a little bit smaller now, but what I wanted to show you this happening live, so this isn't pre-recorded. If I click on the power valve cover on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, we'll also link off to a custom link. So what this does is you'll see I've got my manual stored at a URL. It actually will open up the page and show me all of the information that I need to know about that power valve cover. For instance, clicking on the overview will actually bring up this document, and it will, just one second, load it, and it will tell me that it's a Motorcraft 2150 power valve. I can scan down and actually see the different components. I can actually make sure that I understand everything. So what this is doing is this has helped me as Andrew confidently identify the part that I need to advise Larry on. So if we scoot back to the screen that we've got here, I'm happy with that now. So what I will do is I'll close the picture down. I'll come back to Larry. Closing this down. And we've got Larry's picture here. Let me just close that down. What I can do now is very quickly say to Larry, okay, Larry, I've identified the part. Let me just quickly pause the live video that's actually happening. So I've paused the live video coming in. I'm then going to grab my annotation. So here's my telestration, I should say. I've got a range of telestration tools that I can use here and colors. What I will say to Larry is, Larry, I'm going to use 4 red arrows and highlight on the device what you need to do. Now, what I'd like you to focus on is as I draw these arrows on the right-hand side, having a look on the left-hand side, you'll see that the arrows are appearing in the display on Larry's Navigator 500. I'd be talking to him saying, Larry, are you able to see that those 4 arrows that I've drawn there? And better yet, what I will do is I will grab basically a circle, or end up being something, an ellipse or something, and I'll draw around what the power valve is. So Larry can correctly identify the part that he needs. I'm able to then go back to a live video, and you'll see that the annotation stays there. I can come into my annotation and undo it all and erase it all. And we're basically back to here, and Larry can say, thank you for identifying it. That's the piece of kit that I need to swap out. So that was a really quick demonstration of how we were using object identification. We're making a call. We're helping the glasses wearer identify a part on a technical piece of equipment, and using our assisted reality annotation to draw that up. What I'd like to show you, just let me hang this call up now. What I'd like to show you is what that information looks like when we scoot across to the workspace. So over here, what I need to do, my apologies, just one second, I've got it stored elsewhere. Where am I going? So over here, I grab my pictures that I took. I've got my workspace button, and I know this is a little bit small. I click on the green here, and you'll see on the right-hand side that it's loading my workspace. So the workspace is an additional part of the platform where all of that call is stored, including the photos that we just took, the audio, and all of those bits and pieces. So now that we're in the workspace, I'll just very quickly take you through where that all lived. And I've got access to it, so I can see all of the calls. But if I quickly click on Browse over here, I'm able to browse to the calls that I made. And that was the ID that I just logged in as. And you'll see it'll bring up a list of all the calls I've made. And here is the call that we were just on. And when I click into that call, you'll see I have the details. And when that, even to the level of the device name and things like that, I've got the summary. You can see the time, so it's all live. And you can also see, for instance, there was the photo that I took. And that was that one photo with all of the AI also on it, which I can turn on and off by basically enabling or disabling the object identification. You can also see over here, it's importing some metadata. All of this information becomes searchable, which allows me to look for instance, all of the times that I've taken a picture of a carburetor for 2150, my apologies. So I could very quickly identify how many times that this piece of equipment had been sort of spoken about or a call had been made. If I go back one screen, we won't dive too much into it. In the back, we also recorded this. We have a policy set up that we want to record our calls as well. And actually, you'll see here a fantastic ability that I've both got the audio and the transcription. So in that short amount of a 6-minute, 31-second call, I've got the audio, but it's also transcribed all that into text. And the reason this is important is because I may have mentioned words such as the equipment. All of this text is now searchable. So in terms of linking back to what Alex was saying about the product being about knowledge management, I now have both photos, I have voice to text, all of it becomes searchable and indexed so that I'm able to come in using the search bar over here and search for instances where, say, for instance, a Ford 2150 carburetor was spoken about or something like that. And I can find all of those instances of that call happening. So that's a little bit about the back end of the Librestream Onsight Connect platform and where all of the call data ends up in a rich, I suppose, a rich melting pot of information that a company can leverage for future calls. Alex, I think that's enough that we'll go into just to remind everyone about what the power is of putting together the Navigator 500 with a platform such as RealWear. I'll pass it back to you if that's okay, my friend.
Thank you very much, Andrew. So that's the basic components from a hardware and a software perspective, but I know the start of the show for a few of the people on here is the thermal camera, so don't worry, we haven't forgotten that. What I will do is I will share my screen with you. And what you're looking at here on your screen is just my RealWear Explorer. And that's what I'm looking at on my little occluded display. So obviously I've got my thermal camera plugged in, and just as a note, I have left this desk nice and messy for the purpose of the demo. I'm throwing my boss under the bus here. His desk is always quite messy. But what I want to show you is how easy it is to actually toggle between normal video and thermal camera. So you can see in the middle of the screen, there's a little cross, which is just to say that's where it's measuring the temperature. So on the far left here, I've got a ice cold cup of water, and you can see that's nice and cold. That's 8 degrees Celsius. So you know that's safe to touch, pretty good to drink. Might get onto that later. And I've got a warm glass of water here, which is about 26 degrees Celsius. And finally, I've got my cup of coffee, which is measuring in at about 41, 45 degrees. So you can see the heat signatures here actually make it quite clear. It cuts out all the noise. There's a lot of clutter on this desk, but I can only really see the things with a quite distinct heat signature. So you do have options here. You can change the color scheme by saying color mode. Color mode. I like number 4, but you can play around with it and see what you prefer. For the sake of this demo, let's have a look at number 7. So select item 7. Select item 7. Now it may not pick up what I'm saying, as the voice recognition tends not to pick up conversational cues. It waits for isolated cues that are really distinct. So then when you're talking with your expert or someone on site, it's not actually being prompted by something that you didn't intend it to. So you can see here that's already changed it quite a bit. What I can also do is say more options. And then that little cross in the center is your spot meter. What I can do is change that to area meter. So I say area meter, hide options. Now that's showing you the average temperature in that little square box, as opposed to the temperature at the specific point that we were referencing before. More options. You can also turn the scale completely off, or you can change the measurement to Fahrenheit as well, but I don't think we have any American companies here. So what I'll do is I'll turn it back to spot meter, hide options. And we can also toy with object distance. So here you can see there's different methods of measuring the object distance. We won't toy around with that too much today. So I'll say cancel, cancel. And finally, the thermal mode can be changed as well. So what you're looking at now is the most intense thermal view. It's really showing you only the things with a heat signature. You can then reduce that and say thermal mode 3, which then, as you can see, shows you a little bit more of the reality behind that image. Or you could go to thermal mode 1, which then completely goes back to the normal picture, but you can still measure the temperature of different surfaces. But that's about it for the thermal camera, guys. I'll leave this to the side. And we can get on to any questions that there may have been. How accurate is the thermal camera? Plus minus degrees Celsius. What is the maximum distance from the object being measured before accuracy is affected? I may have to take that one on notice if you don't know it, Andrew.
Look, the maximum distance is 10 feet or around about 3.09 meters is its working. Anything thereafter, it obviously will become inaccurate. What is its temperature accuracy? I would definitely have to grab the tech specs on that and provide that. But Alex, we can definitely publish that.
Absolutely. We can share that in our notes post the show. So we'll be sending out a recording of the demo, and I'll have that question answered with certainty. So apologies that we couldn't get onto that, but it was a very good question. Did we have any other questions? Okay, guys. We've got, I think, 10 minutes back in our day. So I just wanted to thank you again on behalf of the AVR Lab for taking time out of your afternoon. Might have just had a new one come in. Have you got any good examples of application? I assume that means for the thermal camera. If you are talking about the thermal camera, I've got a really solid application actually is long distance conveyors. So obviously you're walking down a 30-kilometer conveyor belt. If any one of those pieces or any one of those parts, sorry, maybe answering you there, both. Look, I guess this answer covers both the thermal camera and the software and hardware. You're walking down a 30-kilometer conveyor. Your plain sight can't recognize faults with a degree of accuracy, but if you can see a specific hot spot along that conveyor, then you can actually zero in on that and try to assess what's wrong with it. And then you can actually dial in, as Andrew just did, you can dial in a remote expert who's then able to diagnose that on the spot. And potentially, if you can't fix it on the spot, you'll be able to send out a technician with precise instructions, pictures, videos, and they know exactly what they're going out to site to do, exactly which parts they need to bring with them, which is where you start to realize significant ROI because you don't have to go out there 3, 4, 5 times. And most importantly, the machinery doesn't break down. So that's one. Obviously, the remote support, remote expert lends itself to a number of different use cases, particularly in manufacturing. Manufacturing, mining, oil and gas, these sectors really benefit. So we had one customer who was driving 30 minutes a day, twice a day, simply just to inspect something that they needed both hands to do. All they needed to do was buy a headset, get some software, and then both people from both offices, which were half an hour apart, could stay exactly where they were, and they were saving 2 hours of transit time per day, which obviously over the course of a year starts to add up to significant savings. So thank you for that question, Scott. I hope we answered it satisfactorily. Anything else before we sign off? And look, if you've got any questions afterwards, guys, feel free to reach out. You've got my details, so I'll be more than happy to be responsive. And obviously, we're going to send out a recording of this with Mihai's, the answer to Mihai's question. So I think that's us done. Thank you very much, guys, for your time.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.